What is going on, everybody? I go by the name of Curry, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish. I don't really know where I'm gonna begin, and I don't really know where I'm gonna go with this, but I do want to start off by saying, so I checked out the leaked episodes of The Last Dance. And I was able to watch the remainder of the documentary. If you guys are like me, you guys have been absolutely glued to the television screen over the last couple of weeks watching the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls during their final season when they won their 6th championship. And I didn't really know what to expect from this documentary. What I will say is that what I thought I would get from this documentary really isn't what I ended up getting after watching this documentary. And as of right now, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. And let me kind of break that down a little bit. I've showed you guys these sneakers before. This is the original box from the original 1999 Air Jordan 14s that came out. These are the very rare white and Carolina blue mid-top colorway. A much more common version of these is the low top that dropped, but the mid-top version is extremely rare in this white and Carolina blue. It's never been retroed before. And like I mentioned before, this is a Grail of mine. This was actually my #1 Grail. There's a whole story behind the sneaker that I won't get into on this video, but if you know that this sneaker is extremely near and dear to me. Now, the thing about this sneaker is that it was my Grail for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was just really starting to get into sneakers like that. I was about 13 years old when these dropped and I really wanted them. But number two, it was because I looked up to Michael Jordan so much, as so many other people did back in the day, and having his shoes kind of felt like you embodied a piece of him a little bit. You know, Michael Jordan for a lot of us was a hero. He was a role model. He was who we wanted to be. And the way that he was portrayed in media and in all of his commercials and campaigns and by the NBA as a whole, and they talk about this in the documentary as well, like the way that he was portrayed was just somebody that was just bigger than life. It was crazy. Now, that being said, I'm not taking away Michael Jordan's greatness, but what this documentary really has allowed me to see is the human side of Michael Jordan, and to see that maybe he isn't quite the superhero that I think a lot of us thought that he was. Now, his shoe deal was unprecedented, right? So this is a sneaker channel, so let's talk a little bit about sneakers. In episode 5, we get into the fact that he went over to Nike, not really wanting to go at all. Matter of fact, his mother had to make him get on the plane, and him and his father had to escort him over to Nike just for him to listen to what they had to say. Now, obviously, they made him a really good pitch. They offered him about $250,000, which was pretty unprecedented at that time. And again, even though he took the deal, he still kind of wanted to be an Adidas guy. There's actually a short clip of him saying that he wanted to be an Adidas guy. Everybody who was anybody knew that he wanted to go with Adidas. Now, they put a lot of money on Jordan, which also meant that they put a lot of stipulations on his contract as well, including a sales projection that he had to meet. Now, not only did he meet that projection, but he beat it by millions and millions and millions of dollars. So obviously it was a no-brainer, and obviously the rest was history about what happened with Michael Jordan at Nike and what eventually became Jordan Brand. There's a few takeaways that happened as a result of that shoe deal that I kind of want to share with you guys today. Not just takeaways specifically from the shoe deal, but takeaways in general that I observed from Michael Jordan, things that I observed about him, and things that I observed from watching this documentary. The first thing that I really want to get into has to do with his shoe deal. Now, one thing that he ends up saying while he's getting all of his endorsements that came after he got the shoe deal was the fact that his game always did the talking for him. He never really had to sell himself much because people already knew what he did on the court. And what he did on the court was pretty incredible. Before he even won his first championship, Michael Jordan was already a superstar. He was doing incredible things on the court, and he had Doug Collins that was behind him that was really pushing him. That's the first thing that I really noticed from the documentary that I don't really think I ever put 2 and 2 together back in the old days. If it wasn't for Doug Collins putting the ball in Michael Jordan's hands so much all the time, making him basically a ball hog on a team, Michael Jordan would never have gotten the shine that he ended up getting. It was because of Doug Collins that Michael Jordan became a one-man show out there, and that's the reason why he got so big. But obviously, he wasn't winning any championships. I believe they said it was 7 years before Michael Jordan won his first championship, from 1984 to 1991. That's a long time to be playing basketball before you ever win a ring. But my problem with that is I wonder if Michael Jordan had actually been okay with that. Now, Now, let's get back to the fact that he really was a phenomenal basketball player. Again, we don't take that away from him, and that's why he got a lot of his endorsements. So, lesson number one before we get any deeper into the story here is let your talents speak for themselves. I guess this is something that I kind of want to talk to you guys about. A lot of you guys that are out here that have YouTube channels, or if you guys kind of stumbled upon this video looking for things about The Last Dance, I want to give you guys a little bit of advice as well as talking about the documentary, and that's the first one there. I see a lot of people out here that call themselves entrepreneurs and things of that nature, and they have multiple businesses that they want to do all at the same time. You want to be this, and they're all different things, and none of them really tie together for real, for real. My advice to you guys would be to take the Michael Jordan route. Michael Jordan was a phenomenal basketball player. That's what he did, to the point where he obsessed about the game, and he blocked out pretty much everything else that most of us kind of agonize over. He blocked a lot of it out. He blocked out politics. The documentary talks about the one time that he had in North Carolina to endorse the politician, the black politician, and he wouldn't do it. Then he said the famous phrase, Republicans buy Nikes too, and it sparked a lot of controversy. But even though he obsessed the game to the point where a lot of us ended up not liking Michael Jordan, he also obsessed about his game to the point where he got a ton of opportunities. Find a core competency, right? Find a niche, find a thing that you do that you can master, that you do so well and you're so passionate about, and watch the doors open up around you to other opportunities instead of always trying to go and knock down all of the doors around you. Now, getting back to the documentary, one thing that I also noticed is that when Phil Jackson came in, Michael Jordan wasn't really too keen to him because of the fact that he could no longer really be the ball hog. Phil came in with the triangle offense. Phil came in with a lot of new things that the Chicago Bulls incorporated, that even though Michael Jordan got less points, it made them champions. Phil made them champions, and I think that was the most important thing that Jerry Krause was trying to do and trying to organize the team, even though he had his little personal beefs and his little personal issues with people. But that's the other lesson that I want to give to you guys about as well, right? Make sure that you have a good support system around you, a good team of people. Nobody is an island out here, right? You may be a peninsula where it looks like you're kind of out here on your own, but you got a whole lot of support behind you. That's super important. Getting back to the documentary now, one thing that I also noticed is that growing up, I actually thought that Michael Jordan was a really nice guy. I don't know why, I just thought that he was always a beast on the court, but I actually thought that he was a pretty soft and gentle guy. We saw images of Michael Jordan, again, like the Gatorade commercial. We saw images on Space Jam. That's what I grew up seeing, the Michael Jordan of yesteryear. That's what it looked like to me. I didn't know about the underbelly of all the things that he was doing with the gambling and his drinking and stuff going on in his marriage and things of that nature. And so when all of these things start coming out and I see the lifestyle that Michael Jordan is starting to live, I don't know, it started to humanize him a bit, like I said, and it actually made me wonder, was I truly a fan of Michael Jordan, or was I just a fan of who Michael Jordan was created to be as far as the image of him in my head? Did I really appreciate him as a person completely? And I think that's the biggest takeaway that you can get from this documentary, along with the fact that we also got to dive super deep into so many other people's stories. We got to dive deep into Phil's story, into Dennis Rodman's story, Scottie Pippen's story, all of his rivals and the things that were going on during the time. Michael Jordan left a lot of people with a lot of sour taste in their mouths, but the people around him also became their best self. You couldn't be around Michael Jordan if you were not your best self, because he was his best self, at least when it came to the court, every single night. Nike did an incredible job of making the Air Jordans in a way and marketing them in a way that made it seem like we absolutely had to have them. And like I said, the reason why we had to have them was because we wanted to feel like Mike. That's why you notice the most popular models of Air Jordans are the ones that Michael Jordan actually played in. And the most popular of the ones that Michael Jordan actually played in were the ones that he did incredible things in. The Last Shot 14s, the Flu Game 12s, the Air Jordan 1s, of course, the classics. And even though Nike made a boatload of money off of the Air Jordans and continues to make a boatload of money, billions of dollars off of the Air Jordans, again, it makes me wonder where we just marketed something that wasn't really real. I mean, Dennis Rodman was one of the most amazing players in basketball back in the 90s. Scottie Pippen was one of the most powerful and dominant players back in the 90s, but we don't rock their sneakers. How come we don't rock their shoes? Now, maybe some people may say they're just not as aesthetically pleasing. But on top of that, we all know that it's because Michael Jordan was the star. He was a superstar, and he was the one that was put on that platform, and he was given that image that he was pretty much invincible. And that really wasn't the case, and you see that a lot in the documentary. Michael Jordan could not have done any of what he did without the support of so many other people that honestly did not get their flowers until this documentary came out. A lot of conversations have come up that says, is Michael Jordan truly the GOAT? I still believe that Michael Jordan is truly the GOAT, just because, like I said, of a lot of things that he was able to do by himself. I mean, again, the stats that he came out with are absolutely phenomenal. The fact that he went up against those bad boy Pistons was phenomenal. Scottie Pippen did the same, and that was also super incredible. But when you look at these shoes and how much these sneakers cost, it just makes me wonder sometimes, what's the point of it all? What's the reason for it all? You know, we've seen people tragically lose lives over sneakers. We've seen people fight over Air Jordans. We've seen people absolutely go crazy over Air Jordans. And today we see people pay exorbitant amounts of money for Air Jordans. Now, that all equals great business for Nike, but at the end of the day, somebody who's as humanized and as flawed as Michael Jordan, I don't know. To me, it actually took a little bit of his brand value away. Just a little bit. The Last Dance documentary is one of the greatest documentaries I think I've ever seen, but not because of how much it did for Michael Jordan and how great it made him look, but actually because it gave me so much insight into who I never knew Michael Jordan was. And unfortunately, in some ways, that's not a very good thing. I feel like I'm rambling, so I'll go ahead and wrap this up just by saying this. Overall, the documentary is very, very, very good. Like I said, one of the best documentaries I think I've ever seen. However, it does really make you think about who Michael Jordan is truly at his core, who Michael Jordan is as a man. So I guess all I'm trying to say is, before you go spending your next gobs and gobs and gobs of money on Air Jordans, think about why you're really buying it. Are you buying into the fact that you just want to look fly? Are you buying into the fact that Michael Jordan is still your hero from when you were a kid? Or are you just buying into whoever Michael Jordan is or who he was that we didn't know who he was at this point? Like, what's your motivation behind the sneakers here? Because I think, like I said, Nike has done an incredible job, and I think they had an agenda for Michael Jordan that he didn't even realize what that agenda was when he went to Nike all those years ago. These sneakers cost me $750. Was it worth it? Yeah, at the end of the day, I still think that it was worth it, just because they have so much sentimental value. But I understood what it was that I was buying, and I understand even more what it is that I buy into when I buy into the Jordan brand. And in a lot of ways, I have that documentary to thank for that. So while we're all watching the remainder of the documentary, if you also haven't watched one of the leaked episodes or some of the leaked episodes, just keep in the back of your mind what it is that you want to get out of this documentary and how it makes you feel about Michael Jordan as a person and as an athlete and as a general human being, as a man at the end of it, because I think a lot of our opinions of him are going to be a little bit changed, are going to be a little bit enlightened. Parts of me regretted kind of being a fan of his, just because if I had known so much of what I know now behind the scenes, even with his amazing ability, I don't know if I would have been so fanatic about Michael Jordan back in the day, because again, at the end of the day, he's a human just like all the rest of us. He's flawed and he doesn't have the ability to be perfect. And he didn't put all of his teams on his back and lead his teams to all those championships like that. He had a ton of help. He had a lot of shots from other players that progressed him to other conference finals and things of that nature. Like, he had a lot of help behind the scenes. He just happened to be the one that got pushed up and put on the pedestal to be kind of the poster child for everything that was going on in the NBA at the time. So I don't know. I love being a fan of Michael Jordan, but at the same time, a lot of the things that he did and a lot of the way that a lot of things went, I don't know. All right, that's enough of me rambling. Look, I want you guys to kind of sound off down below and let me know what you guys are thinking so far of the Last Dance documentary. Are you enjoying it? Are you seeing a new side of Michael Jordan that you never saw before? Is it a good side? Is it a bad side? Kind of let me know what you're feeling. How do you guys feel about the Bulls franchise as a whole? Dennis Rodman's story and Pippen's story and all these other people's deeper stories. How do you guys feel about that? Were you around back in the day when all these rivalries were going on, when the bad boy Pistons were putting a hurting on everybody that came through their city? Tell me about that. Let's talk about it. Of course, write down in the comments. Make sure that you click on that subscribe button so we can welcome you into the Sneaker Fetish family, to make sure you don't miss out on any more heat that comes through like these, because I guarantee you I got a lot more heat on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here on Sneaker Fetish. I go by the name of Kari. This is the Air Jordan 14 OG mid in white and Carolina blue. And until next time, I'm out.